Before you can begin to protect your wealth from outside sources, you need to first make sure that your inner resources are aligned to keep your fortune secure. Your sense of security comes ultimately from within, after all. Remember, wealth should be adding to your sense of security. Money is neither a substitute or a prerequisite for this inner peace. There's a great axiom in the personal development industry I'd like to mention. It goes, as within, so without. This is the great truth that whatever the condition of your inner world, your outer world will closely correspond. That rule is especially appropriate when it comes to your finances. A strong, secure fortune is the result of a strong, secure mindset. That sort of strength comes from educating yourself about money, forming good financial habits and skills, having sound financial planning, and implementing all of the other factors we've discussed so far in this program. These philosophies and practices were created not just to expand your fortune, but to expand your mind. So use them as a launching pad to learn everything you can on these topics from all sources. As your inner resources grow, your wealth can't help but follow. And the same is true about protecting your assets. Your wealth will never be completely safe until you yourself are secure. This idea extends into paradox because the ultimate security does not come with the knowledge that your money can help you out of any situation. It comes from knowing that all the resources you will ever need for survival and happiness come from within yourself, and that all the money in the world would be redundant. In other words, as strange as it may be to hear, your money will never really be secure until you realize that you don't need any of it. But that said, let's consider the second thing you need to consider when protecting your assets. And that is simply to be careful with your wealth. You work very hard to earn the money you do, to invest it, to manage your multiple streams, to make your fortune grow. And of course you have mastered the art of saving money or else your wealth wouldn't exist. So it would be a terrible mistake to waste all that effort by squandering the fruits of your labor. Don't be careless with your fortune. Don't risk it unnecessarily. Don't let greed make your decisions for you. Consider the example of the man they called the financier. His name was Robert Morris, and in the years of our nation's birth, he was the richest man in America. He was also a signer of the Declaration of Independence, the nation's first superintendent of finance, and the architect of the country's first national bank. A self-made success, Morris built a vast fortune as a commercial trader, landowner, and business proprietor. He was a staunch patriot, and during the Revolutionary War, he even used his own money to guarantee the fledgling young nation's mounting debts before a national treasury was established. It really says something about a man's reputation, not to mention his wealth, that the government would turn to a private individual to ensure its loans. After independence, Morris turned down the position of First Secretary of the Treasury in order to put his full focus back into business. And if our tale ended here, you might conclude that the story of Robert Morris exemplifies the rewards that come to a life of integrity and service. Unfortunately, our story does not end with Morris's return to private life. As land values rose in the booming post-war economy, Morris couldn't resist the urge to buy, eventually becoming the nation's largest landowner. However, Morris was used to money-making transactions in which profits were made within the relatively short span of a few months. He soon discovered, however, that with more and more wealth invested in land, there was little cash left to pay his growing debts. And even when land prices began to drop, even as he began to lose money, the nation's financier remained obsessed with acquiring still more land. Finally, 22 years after putting his signature to the Declaration of Independence, Morris was arrested for non-payment of debts. In those days, this meant debtor's prison. Morris, you see, had made one fatal mistake. He got greedy. It was a mistake that cost him 3 years in prison, unable to raise the $3 million he needed to regain his freedom. When he died in 1806, Robert Morris, whom the editors of Forbes call America's first businessman, was making plans to open a modest antique shop. This is by no means an unusual story. Fortunes are made every day, but they're also lost every day by people who take their wealth for granted or risk everything on ill-thought-out propositions. The story of Robert Morris serves as a warning against giving in to greed and taking unnecessary risks. As we've discussed, some level of risk becomes necessary as you work toward financial independence and financial freedom, but this should be intelligent, calculated risk. Speculating in areas you know nothing about is the easiest way to lose a lot of money quickly. We might also learn the lesson of diversification. Most people limit their diversification to their stock portfolios, but I'm referring now to the diversification of all your wealth. You may remember from our discussion about multiple streams of income that the more different types of income you have, the more secure you would be if one of them should fail. The same principle applies to wealth you've already accumulated. You may put a great deal of money in the stock market, but you may also want to invest some in bonds, real estate, or other attractive investment vehicles. Robert Morris's diversification of his entire fortune to buying land wasn't very intelligent for any number of reasons. But chief among them was that he put all of his eggs in one basket, and in the end, that one basket couldn't hold them. So I can't say it enough. Be careful with your wealth. Nobody cares about it as much as you do. Nobody is in as good a position to determine which potential investments are a good match for your knowledge, interests, and comfort with risk. So keep your wealth secure, and it will add to your security for all time.